everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. If you've seen at least a few videos on my channel, you've probably noticed that I tend to dress in a particular style. In general, I would describe my style as comfy, vintage inspired with a historical flair. This time of year in particular, I basically live in plaid mid-calf length skirts and chunky sweaters. Okay, let's be honest, in December they're mostly Christmas sweaters. And if you can believe it, most of my wardrobe comes from the thrift store. I pretty much stopped buying anything new a couple years ago when I switched my style from pants to skirts. In fact, I believe that in the last couple of years I've purchased 3 or 4 tops from a mom and daughter shopping trip to Kohl's and a few cute lacy Victorian style blouses from Target and The Gap. Yes, that blouse that every costumer now owns. But other than underclothes, all the rest of my clothing is either old or comes from the thrift store. Now, I totally understand that as a plus-size woman, thrift stores can be hit or miss. I'm lucky in that my local thrift store, Value Village, does a great job of actually carrying a lot of plus-size clothes and sectioning things out by size, unlike some other annoying stores like Goodwill. This means that when I go into the store, I tend to only have to look through the extra large and extra large racks. So first, let me talk about the areas of the store I shop in because I tend to beeline for a few sections when I enter the store. I tend to look at dresses first because it's the smallest section and therefore can be tackled quickest. Here I'm pretty much exclusively looking for E-shakti dresses or actual vintage dresses, and recently have come up mostly empty in this department. But that's okay because in the last year or so I've found that actually for my personal style, separates are more versatile. Next, I go to the skirts department. Here, I look for anything longer and fuller. In fact, I tend to look at the bottom of the rack near the floor instead of the top because that's a better gauge for how long the skirts are. Once I locate the long ones, I look for patterns and color. I like solid colors, plaid, and the occasional festive or vintage print skirt. I also spend this time looking at shape. I know what looks better on my body type, like A-line skirts or as close to a circle skirt as possible, or at the least voluminous with pleats. I do not want tiered skirts or pencil, straight, or boxy skirts. In this section, I will also look at skirts that might be a little bit large on me too, because it's pretty easy to either take in or reset a waistband if the rest of the skirt is right. And likewise, you can hem a skirt that might be too long on you. Next, at this time of year, I head towards sweaters, both cardigan sweaters and pullovers. One tip in this section, when looking for vintage style sweaters, I tend to ignore the extra large section, remember I'm usually an XL or XXL, and instead take a look through the large section in addition to extra large. Vintage sweaters are usually tighter fitting, and a sweater that hits right around your natural waist is ideal when you're pairing it with a skirt. In fact, many of the sweaters in my wardrobe are actually petites, and considering I would be a tall length normally, that's saying something. These are the style points I look for with sweaters besides the fit. For necks, I love a crew neck, both on cardigans and pullovers. A higher V-neck will also work, or a mock turtleneck. For sleeves, I tend to look at both the shoulder seam, because you want it actually on your shoulder, not dropped like a lot of modern sweaters, and lengthwise, especially as a very long-armed person, I tend to look for a 3/4 sleeve. Don't forget about short sleeve sweaters for other times of year though, because a mock neck short sleeve sweater looks so vintage. If you can find one that has a tiny bit of puff at the top of the sleeve, that can be fun too. Finding fitted sweaters though is the biggest key. You don't want baggy sweaters. I love a cable knit, but rib knit's also nice, and just the all-over smooth-looking knit is great too. Also, just as a general thrifting tip, pay close attention to whether a sweater has started to pill because you don't want to bring those home. Then I move on to blouses. I'm guilty of having way too many blouses, especially of certain colors already, so I tread carefully here. First though, one thing I've noticed about my thrift store is that they don't understand what blouses are. They put only button-up collared shirts in the section they label blouses, and all of the rest of the non-sweater tops go into their knit top section. Maybe they'll learn someday. Although collared button-up blouses can be great for vintage style and history bounding, I personally don't like wearing them, so I avoid that section and focus on the other one. Here, other than color, I look mostly at fabric type. I love lightweight, ruffly blouses, and I'm a sucker for chiffon. This is also where my store puts short sleeve sweaters, so those are on my radar here as well. I look for puff sleeves, cute collars, lace details, maybe a cute subtle print, and things that look good tucked in. Occasionally, you can even find actual vintage pieces, both in the blouses and the sweaters, though they do tend to be pretty rare in plus sizes. Most of the ones that do turn up are from the 80s, but that's actually a great thing because as long as the pattern is right, 80s blouses often have puff sleeves, structure, or other nice details, so they can be perfect in a history-bounding or vintage style wardrobe. Once I've had my fill of clothing, I head over to the linen section. This is where my store puts fabric yardage too, but 99.9% of the time, their fabric selection is atrocious. But right next to that are the tablecloths. As long as there are no stains, tablecloths make great skirts, especially if they're circular tablecloths, which check out my video on the world's easiest skirt project, which I've linked up above and in the description as an example. You may also want to take a look at curtains and sheets for other yardage possibilities. Finally, I pass by the clothing accessory section. I have found actual vintage gloves, hats, scarves, and other accessories in this section before, as well as a plethora of nice belts, both modern and vintage. And that's it! It's amazing how many pieces you can find that will work for both history-bounding or a vintage style wardrobe, even when looking at plus-size clothing. And the wonderful thing is that not only are you saving a ton of money over buying new, you're also helping to save the environment by making sure that this clothing gets a second life in your closet instead of winding up in a landfill. So get out there and go thrifting! A few final tips. When you're assembling your wardrobe, there are a couple easy styling things you can do to make your outfit look more vintage. For one, tuck in your blouse. And if your sweater's not cropped, tuck that in too. This will instantly elevate your look and is such a simple thing. For two, a little petticoat will help your skirt look more full. And it doesn't need to be a big crinoline or anything. If you don't have a little simple petticoat, you can even wear a less full skirt underneath your outer skirt. Number three, as a plus size woman, there are certain fabrics that when tucked in, I find look unflattering because although my waist is smallish, right above my waist is definitely not. So a wide belt, like those wide elastic ones that are so popular, is such a savior here and really helps to smooth that line out, no shapewear necessary. And I often find these belts at the thrift store. And number four, it's amazing what a red lipstick can do. In these days of wearing masks, granted, most people won't even see your lips, but I feel like it always makes me feel better and more put together when I put on a red lip. If you are having to go out and wear a mask, I highly recommend Maybelline Super Stay Matte in the color Pioneer because that won't rub off on your mask and will look perfect when you take it off. If you're just around the house though and don't need to worry about the staying power, my favorite is the Maybelline Super Stay Lip Crayon in No Limits, which doesn't have the staying power but is a great moisturizing vibrant red. I've linked both of these in the description below. Add a little red lipstick and it instantly elevates your vintage style. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful to you and gave you some fun ideas and tips to expand your wardrobe with thrifted pieces. Leave me a comment and let me know what fun clothing items you found in the thrift stores. If you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week with my sewing vlogs on Tuesdays and my regular content coming out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you would like to support me in all of the work that I do on this channel or help expand my thrifted wardrobe, I have a link to my Ko-fi account down below. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!